Good morning, fellow babies. It's a beautiful Saturday on the West Coast. I think on the East Coast it's cold. It's about 70 here, so we're enjoying ourselves. Welcome back to the Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I actually just did some podcasts, and the guy called it the Pack Factor. You can call it that if you want as well. On SIFTD.net, hope you are a supporter of SIFTD on Patreon. If so, we really appreciate the support. Our first question comes from Twitter, from @Stringer2355. What do you think of EA's purchase of Respawn? Did Microsoft miss out on an opportunity to purchase Respawn for themselves? I am certain that when Respawn was formed and Respawn signed its first deal with EA to do Titanfall, the first Titanfall, that Respawn gave Electronic Arts a right of first refusal, ROFR. And right of first refusal just means that if another offer comes in to buy Respawn, that EA has a chance to match that price. So the second part of the question, did Microsoft miss out on an opportunity? I don't think Microsoft could have bought Respawn unless they bid so much that EA chose not to match it. So it's possible because, as you know, Microsoft paid $2.5 billion for Minecraft. Microsoft paid $2.5 billion for Mojang. The rumor was then that Activision offered $2 billion, and Activision and Microsoft didn't have rights of first refusal, but Microsoft made a preemptive bid $500 million higher, assuming Activision wouldn't go that high. So sure, Microsoft could have gone higher. The problem with a first party buying, something that costs several $100 million is that the revenue stream for the first party purchaser is typically only half as big as for a third party like EA, because EA can publish Respawn games on both PlayStation and Xbox. So it's economically not as good a deal for Microsoft. Agreed, that if Microsoft owns compelling IP, they sell more consoles, they get more people on Xbox Live, they make a lot more money, but it's really hard to outbid somebody who can look at a revenue stream of 2x from Respawn because they could sell on PlayStation and Xbox than Microsoft looking at Xbox only. So no, I don't think Microsoft missed out. This is an interesting purchase because Respawn, Vince is the guy who kind of, with Craig Allen and Vince ran two different studios at Electronic Arts back in 2000, probably before that, but till 2002 or 3. And Craig ran Spark Unlimited, Vince ran Infinity Ward, and they made Medal of Honor. So, they didn't invent Medal of Honor. I mean, a rumor has it that Steven Spielberg actually invented Medal of Honor, but, they made World War II games. They got into, an argument with EA back in the early 2000s. They both left. Activision signed them up, Spark Unlimited to make the PC version of the first Call of Duty, and Infinity Ward to make the first edition of Call of Duty on console. And I looked this up like yesterday. I can't find the Metacritic score for the first Call of Duty, but it was high. It was good. I did find the next three that Vince's team at Infinity Ward made, and they were like 89, 94, and 94. And just to put that in context, GTA and Zelda and Mario Odyssey are 97s. So 94 is pretty freaking great, especially for a shooter game. I mean, that's pretty freaking great. So, so they kind of invented Call of Duty. I still remember Ron Dornick, who was the head of Activision Publishing, it's now Eric Hirschberg, but Ron back then, told me about this Call of Duty and was like just big eyes and drooling about how great it was going to be. And I'm like, it sounds like Medal of Honor. He goes, yeah, but it's Medal of Honor, but it's better. And I didn't get it. I honestly did not understand why Activision was so excited about that. But these guys did just a phenomenal job, both of them. And they didn't get paid very much. When they went to work for Activision, it was like they were bought, for like $20 million or $25 million. So sounds like a ton of money, right? But you're splitting this among all the developers. So, my guess is Vince had probably paid for his house. I mean, he probably got $1 million. It wasn't a crazy amount. Then he produced Call of Duty for Activision 4 iterations. And when he did it, they came out every 2 years. So Activision used to have two console teams, Treyarch and Infinity Ward, And those guys are productive. Every other year for a game, compare and contrast that to frickin' Grand Theft Auto. 5 years between 4 and 5, and 4 years so far and no hint. Or look at Red Dead Redemption, 8 years between the May 2010 launch and the May 2018 launch. So, most games 3 years, 2 years is hard to do. Star Wars Battlefront's on a 2-year cycle, Battlefield's on a 2-year cycle, hard to do. Vince did it with not crazy resources and got 89, 94, 94 for his last 3 Call of Duty games. So, of course, his lawyer negotiated the most amazing bonus deal for Vince. And he got Vince and his team at Infinity Ward a percentage of revenues on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And up until Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I don't think any Call of Duty game ever sold 20 million units. I think the highest ever was 16, something like that. And they got a revenue share above whatever the old one was, 16, let's say. So they sold 22 or 24 million, some crazy number, because Modern Warfare 2 was unbelievable. Sold 8 million units more than anybody ever hoped for, or more than that maybe. And the bonus that was payable under Harold Brown's contract, $128 million, Dr. Reba. A lot. Now, Vince was partners with Jason West. The deal was they got a quarter of that, 32 million, so they got 16 million each. The team got 96 million, and call it 150 guys. So everybody was making money. Vince and Jason obviously making more money, but everybody got paid in that deal. Activision withheld it, lawsuits ensued. They were fired because they dared to talk to EA, whatever. And in the course of the whole thing, they ended up getting paid their money. They ended up going to work for EA. Jason took his $16 million and retired. I think he's from North Carolina, but he retired. And Vince formed Respawn and came up with the Titanfall idea, got EA to front all the development costs. So EA's been funding all of Titanfall development. They did Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2. Titanfall 1 came out in March of 14, Titanfall 2 in October of 16, 2.5 years. And I remember talking to Vince, I'm like, wow, I can't believe you got a game out in 2.5 years. And he said, that's 6 months longer than I've ever had on any game I've ever worked on. Like, that's a luxury. So, you've got this studio that is crazy productive. And the first Titanfall was like 100 people. The second one was like 150 people. So it's a relatively small studio, normal studio size around 200. So they are lean, they are fast, which makes them super productive. And the last 2 Titanfalls, 85 and 87. Not quite up to the 94s that the Call of Duty games got, but this is new IP, and it is a little funky gameplay, Titans and stuff. It's a little different. Some people say it's a rip-off of Gundam or whatever, but that's really good. You guys know, you guys are gamers, that's really good review scores. So EA entrusted them with working on a Star Wars game. They have Stig Asmussen, who was a God of War guy back, what was the name of that studio?
Sony Santa Monica.
Yeah, Sony Studios, yeah. So Stig was over there working on that. Apparently the work on the Star Wars game looks just incredible, and it's only been months. As you all know, EA just recently shut down Visceral, so they have kind of a hole in their studio structure. EA is able to convert operating expenses from paying out royalties to Respawn on Titanfall and Star Wars into capital expenditures by buying them. So if you think about this purchase price, it's essentially just prepaying all the royalties EA thinks they're going to pay them in the future anyway. So pretty good deal. And you get a super high quality, super productive studio. So the answer to your question is, I think it's a phenomenal deal. I think EA wins. You want somebody internal that gets games out fast every 2.5 years with super high quality, who is creative and comes up with concepts like Titanfall and came up with concepts like Call of Duty, and who made like the 2 highest rated Call of Duty games of all time. Yeah, you want this guy on your team. Our next question this week from Patreon, from Shiraz Barlas. Hey Pac, Microsoft / Phil Spencer, as opposed to some other Phil Spencer, recently announced they are looking to form more in-house studios to create Xbox exclusives. Do you reckon it's a little too late since Xbox One X has already launched and it takes several years to form studios and create exclusive software? Well, it's too late to reinvigorate Xbox sales, but it's not too late to sustain them. I think Microsoft's in this console business to stay. So I don't think that they expect that consoles are going away. Microsoft is probably, pretty honest, about games being played off console. So Microsoft has offered Xbox Anywhere Windows 10 games, and you can play Xbox One games on Windows 10 on PCs. Sony, same thing. They bought it on Live, they bought Gaikai. They understand that you don't actually need a console to play a game. And that is the wave of the future, that you don't really need a console. But Microsoft wants to be part of your gaming life, and they want you to be on Xbox Live forever. So, exclusive content that you can only play on an Xbox network makes sense to me. And, that's where Amazon is going when they hired, I forgot the name of the studio, but Les Benzies formed a studio in Edinburgh. Look up Leslie Benzies on Wikipedia, and you can find the name of the studio. I forgot what it's called. But he started a studio, and Amazon gave him $50 million. They don't have a console, and they have a studio. Isn't that strange? So, these guys, all these big smart companies, and Microsoft and Sony and Amazon are certainly among the big smart companies out there. They recognize that they need to differentiate if they want to participate in gaming revenue in the future. Look at a game like Destiny 2 on PC. It's launched through Battle.net. You can't buy it on Steam, right? So Activision doesn't want anybody else to get a piece of it. So it makes sense if Microsoft wants to stay relevant, that they have their own games that you can only go to Xbox Live to download and play. And so, no, I think that it's not too late at all. I think that there's plenty of really great content out there. I don't know, that any of these guys are for sale, but Epic has Fortnite, for example. Epic's 40% owned by Tencent, but I think Microsoft would love to have an exclusive. They have an exclusive on PlayerUnknown Battleground. Probably, it's a timed exclusive, probably, but I would imagine that studio would consider selling itself for hundreds of millions of dollars if EA wanted to pay it. Blue Hole, and so there's stuff out there. There's Day One, Z1, H1Z1, DayZ. Sorry, get those two mixed up. But yeah, there's those studios. There's a lot. There's Campo Santo. There's guys that were good studios that I think Microsoft would love to own. Obviously, then there's the big ones like Valve, which I don't think are for sale. But again, Bethesda, which I don't think are for sale. But there you go. So yeah, I think they could buy. I think they could form. If they form, it's hard because of IP. So is the Coalition, or did they change their name? They're Black Tusk or Black something. Right. Black Tusk. They're Black Tusk. Yeah. So the Coalition is one, like EA formed it, but then they needed IP and they bought the Gears of War IP, and those guys did a phenomenal job. So you can form a studio. 343 they formed in the wake of Bungie moving out, and then they've done a great job with Halo. So you can form a studio if you have good IP. It's really hard to do what Vince Zampella did, form Respawn, come up with brand new IP like Titanfall and have it succeed. That's hard, and that's hit and miss. But I think that there's plenty of stuff out there to buy. There's plenty of old IP to resurrect, so certainly not grabbed by the ghoulies, but there's stuff out there. So I don't think it's too late at all. Our next question comes from SIFTD from Jacques. I'm wondering what you think about Nintendo planning to make 25 to 30 million Switch consoles next year, according to the Wall Street Journal. If the Switch does these numbers, could it catch up to the Xbox One by the end of the 2019 fiscal year? The trick with the Switch selling that many is China. So Switch is launching in China, and it's literally China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, all three. So Hong Kong is part of mainland China, but it's separate. It's not sovereign. It's a separate area. We haven't seen next-gen consoles in China yet. So I think Xbox 360 is there. I don't think Xbox One's there. Xbox 360 never had enough critical mass for Microsoft to even bother reporting on a number. The Switch is a little different because it's portable. And so it might have appeal. And the Switch is a lot different because the content works. It is unique. Nintendo content is just unlike any other content anywhere. So, I'm thinking that 25 to 30 million means 10 in China. And so I think it means 15 to 20 million rest of world. I'm basing this on, the most recent October MPD numbers, which I'm not allowed to give you the MPD numbers, so I'm not going to. But they extrapolate, in my calculation, to about 14 million a year. And I pick October because in the US in late September, probably that last week in September, Switch units just started showing up everywhere. You could suddenly find them every place. Throughout October, they have been available everywhere. So if you go into the store, they're on the shelf. If you go to Amazon, they're on the shelf. They're available. If you go to eBay, they're $300.01. There's no premium, so they're clearly in supply. So we had supply and demand in balance in October, and demand was at a rate that suggests to me that the run rate globally for the year going forward year is about 14 million. I could be off by 1 or 2. I'm not off by 10. So the demand is not 25 to 30. But my US numbers don't extrapolate China. And China doesn't even happen till December. It is a new market. You really haven't had many consoles there ever. And the question about the Chinese market is, will they support, third-party consoles and third-party software? Consoles, yes. Software, I'm not so sure. The Chinese, historically, as a culture, have not respected intellectual property, and they've ripped it off. So, the question is, with Tencent as a partner, do you have, the government helping to enforce intellectual property laws and make sure that nobody copies the software and makes it available for the Switch and no one buys it? I actually don't care how many consoles Nintendo sells. I care how much software they sell. So that Chinese market is going to be a really interesting experiment. I don't know enough about the Chinese market because we don't have a history of console sales there to tell you that it can support 10 million a year. That's a lot. I mean, the US market, think about 300 plus million people, 115 million households, 75 million of them middle class or better. I mean, pretty solid. There's no chance that there are more than 75 million middle class households in China. They're just not. So the Switch isn't selling 10 million here. So it seems odd to me that people think it's going to sell 10 million in China. It might for 1 year, but I just don't think so. I would say odds are 14 million globally ex-China, another 3 in China. So what I think is going on is I think the Wall Street Journal reported on Nintendo's plans to ramp up production to up to 25 to 30, and read the article. They didn't say we're going to make 25 to 30. The production forecast means 2 to 2.5 million per month. That's what 25 to 30 million really means. And Nintendo can always back off of that after 6 months. So my guess is demand, including China, is going to be 18 million, which is 1.5 million units a month. They're behind that now. They'll ramp up to 2.5 for a little while, see if demand grows in China. They'll know starting in December. And by April, 6 months in, if it's not supporting 2.5 million a month, they'll scale back to 1.5. So my bias is no, it's not going to catch up to Xbox One by the end of 2019. Got a question from Patreon. From Aaron Grimshaw. What a great name. Hey, Pachter. Hey, Grimshaw. When holiday Black Friday sales happen and consoles get bundled and discounted, who takes the loss on the price cut? The platform holders, the retailers, or another entity? All right, so there's a couple of different sales that go on. There are retail-sponsored discounts, and there are manufacturer-sponsored discounts, and there are publisher-sponsored discounts. And the answer is all three happen. So let's talk first about a bundle. If software is bundled inside the box, not outside, so GameStop occasionally will run a bundle where they'll just throw in a game, and typically it'll be like any game you want. That's a retail bundle. If the software's inside the box, meaning it's a digital download or there's actually a physical copy inside the box, that is a manufacturer discount. Typically, the game is discounted to $40 instead of $60. So it'll be like $289 instead of $249 for the console. Sometimes $299 instead of $249. The Call of Duty bundles tend to be $50 games instead of 60. And what happens there is on a $60 game, the manufacturer's royalty is between 10 and 12 depending on volume. So typically what happens is if Call of Duty sells for $60 retail, Sony or Microsoft get 10 or 12 bucks. If they put it inside the box, Sony or Microsoft essentially are forgiving the console royalty. So the publisher gets the same amount of money. Every once in a while you get that discount where the game goes for 40 bucks. Typically both the publisher and the manufacturer take a hit, and the publisher takes 10 roughly and the manufacturer takes 10. So that's inside the box discounts. When you get discounts beyond what's offered by the console manufacturer, and the way to prove this out, go to the Sony website, go to the Microsoft website, and look and see what their console bundles are. And then they'll have you click through to retailers where they're available. If it says $289 or $299 Call of Duty bundle, that is what I just described. If you see a discount different from what's on the manufacturer website, that's taken by the retailer. And last holiday, we saw that at Target and Best Buy. I saw it more on software than I did on hardware, but they were offering software for like, I think Titanfall $30, Battlefield $40, Call of Duty $40 on Black Friday. Those, again, you have to go to the publisher website to see. If EA says on Black Friday, Battlefield $39.99, they're offering the discount. And they do that for 1 or 2 days around Black Friday weekend, and for 1 or 2 days the week of Christmas. You'll get a publisher sponsored discount. If they say $59.99, and the best place to go is go to GameStop. If they don't have it discounted, then the publisher's not discounting it. GameStop does not discount, period. They give you exactly what the publisher offers. So if you see Target $39.99, GameStop $59.99, it is a Target discount, not a publisher discount. They are not sharing in the fee. Game Group, Game PLC is essentially bankrupt for the second or third time because the discounting there gets to be ridiculous. And UK people, God bless you, you guys are trained, don't ever pay full price for anything. So you don't get, good retailers who can stay in business because they can't compete. So we're starting to see that in the US. And last Christmas is the first time I saw it, where Target and Best Buy discounted below cost. You get it. And I understand why. Best Buy wants you in the store and they want you to buy a TV and they want to sell you a 4K TV for $3,000. Obviously you can buy one for $500, but they want to sell you the OLED, super whatever, the Samsung for $2,000 or $3,000. And if they can give you $10 off a game or $20 and get you to spend $3,000 on a TV, they're making money. So I get it, but it's bad for the industry if retail goes away, because then you put pricing power in the hands of a very concentrated group and those discounts will end. Anyway, hope that answered your question. Thank you for joining us on this week's Pachter Factor. I'm hopeful that you're watching on Patreon and you're a patron, and we are hoping you're getting your money's worth for it. It's a very small monthly fee. You can watch Pachter Factor, you can subscribe to SIFTD.net. There's expanded offerings, lots of different options for how to subscribe. If you're a subscriber, Shane thanks you because it allows him to pay the bills while he gives up his Saturday. He went to bed at 3 last night and got here at 9. He got no sleep. He's helping us to bring to you all the Pachter loving that we can bring. So thanks for joining us. If you're not on Patreon, this is a week old. It's Christmas probably already happened by the time you're watching this. It's probably like mid-2018 and you're watching on YouTube. But thanks for joining us. We will see you next week. Oh, and I'm sorry, last thing. I don't think that EA is going to screw up the brand. I know that, I saw a lot of commentary about, oh my God, here comes more microtransactions. Titanfall 2 doesn't have DLC. It's got microtransactions. That is just what it is now. So if you don't like it, don't pay. It's okay. You're allowed to play games and not pay. And, the truth is, most of the stuff in Titanfall 2 is cosmetic. So if you don't want to dress up your Titan and make it pretty, who cares? Get over yourself. The people who are compelled to do that are showing off. They're the people who have to wear Air Jordans instead of, Costco brand sneakers. Like, whatever. I mean, I get it. If you're a professional basketball player, you should be wearing Air Jordans. But if you're just walking around in jeans and sneaks, you can wear Costco brand, and people will just know that you're frugal. All right, let's move on. Be frugal in Titanfall if you want to, and don't buy cosmetic shit, or do, but don't complain about it. It's like it is what it is. It's optional.